Yes, you read the title correctly. There are Danny Phantom movies. Movies, plural. Before rewatching the series, I did not know this, so I just wanted to make sure everyone was on the same page. So in this video, I won't really be recapping every last detail of the entire show, because I feel like the most notable things that happen in these movie episodes. But before we begin, I will do a bit of a quick review of the full series. Danny Phantom really nails the whole teenage superhero format. He always struggles to balance his personal life with his heroics, and the bully character is so goddamn annoying. It really is the perfect blend of action and shenanigans. And there's quite a lot of wholesomeness to it as well. And I really like its color palette as well. There's a lot of cool environments, like a lot of purples and greens. And Danny's parents are ghost hunters who don't know Danny's a ghost. His father also accidentally gave his childhood best friend ghost powers, and he became Danny's arch nemesis. Danny's sister Jazz knows he has powers, but he doesn't know she knows. While Generator Rex pushed the absolute limits of what a kid show can do, Danny Phantom is a reminder that cartoons can still be wholesome and funny. Before we officially begin, there's still one more thing I want to say. I always thought the reason Sam was goth is because goths are like associated with grim and darkness and stuff. Was that intentional? Did anyone else notice that? Anyway, now we begin for real. So the first one was Rainstorm. So Vlad Plasmius accidentally frees Lord Pariah Dark, the Ghost King, from the sarcophagus of forever sleep. You see, Vlad wanted to steal the Crown of Fire and the Ring of Rage, because together they were the source of Pariah's powers, but he only escaped with the Ring of Rage. Meanwhile on Earth, Danny's beginning to develop a bit of a relationship with a girl named Valerie. Now you see, this is a tad bit of an issue, because Valerie is also an anti-ghost hunting vigilante. Oh, and her full name is Valerie Gray. Get it? Because she's morally in the gray? This also feels kind of out of nowhere since they weren't exactly chummy in previous episodes. Maybe if they had them become like minor acquaintances before, and now they're starting to like get serious, then maybe it would have made a little more sense. Now, unsurprisingly, Sam is very opposed to this out of jealousy. Vlad reveals to Valerie that he gave her the ghost hunting equipment, then he gives her the Ring of Rage as a way to hide it from Pariah. Would that make Vlad her sugar daddy? Huh. So the Fentons are working on this thing called the ectoskeleton, which is like a giant mech suit that can fight ghosts, except anyone who puts it on straight up dies. Then Lord Pariah chases all the ghosts out the ghost zone and launches a full-scale invasion on the human world. And keep in mind, this is him without the Ring of Rage. Danny begins using his powers to get back at his bullies, and Vlad points out how similar they're starting to become. Then Lord Pariah plunges the entire town into the ghost zone, and Valerie, not knowing what the Ring of Rage was, gave it to him. Danny, realizing all this happened because he couldn't control his anger, decides to take the ectoskeleton and go face off against Lord Pariah himself. And so Danny gives one final goodbye to his friends, and this part like really makes you think, oh, he's not coming back from this. Then Danny flies into the ghost zone and readies for the final battle, but to his surprise, all of his ghost enemies have shown up to help him. In the end, Danny manages to defeat Pariah by finally unlocking the ability to duplicate himself, a power he had struggled to learn in previous episodes. Afterward, Danny apologizes to Dash and everything goes back to normal. I like Danny's character arc in this one. What kid wouldn't want to bully their bullies with superpowers? But of course, every time he abuses his powers, the situation only gets worse. The conflict of this episode does feel much greater than previous ones. As I said earlier, during the finale it really does feel like Danny might die. I like what they were going for with Valerie in this episode, but it felt like the whole change happened way faster than it should have. And Lord Pariah, I don't want to say he was boring, but he did feel a lot like the type of villain who's all brawn and nothing else. I'd say overall this is a pretty great episode and the second best Danny Phantom movie. Second best, eh? Well, which is the first best? Well, that's the next one. The Ultimate Enemy. Now, before we begin, I have to address something. Yes, The Ultimate Enemy is about time travel. Now, I know I had previously criticized Generator X for its inclusion of time travel, but let me just explain the differences here. As I said before, Generator X is much more realistic. And it built an entire season around the time travel plotline. Danny Phantom is a lot more cartoony, and there already are some ghosts capable of warping reality. A ghost being able to manipulate time isn't really all that of a stretch, and the time travel is only used in 2 episodes. But even if you were to ignore all that, this episode is still one of the most emotional and hard-hitting of the entire series. And the story cannot function without this time travel element. Okay, now we can begin. So right off the bat, we get a look at Amity Park in the future, and apparently, Danny's all giant and evil in the future. Then these eyeball guys, who I'm half certain are aliens, called the Observants, decide that they want Danny dead, so they hire a ghost named Clockwork to go back in time and kill him. In the present, Mr. Lancer announces the CAT test, which is like the big test that determines your future. You see, the joke is that it's a parody of the ACT, but it's spelled CAT, and CAT spells cat. But Danny hasn't studied since he's out fighting ghosts all the time. So Clockwork sends his first assassin after Danny, Box Lunch, daughter of the Box Ghost and Lunch Lady. Clockwork mentions that Box Lunch hasn't been born yet, except the Box Ghost and Lunch Lady are both ghosts, which this confirms that ghosts can reproduce with each other. Just wanted to make sure everyone knew that. Anyway, the assassination attempt fails and Danny defeats her with the highly explosive nasty sauce. If you're wondering why burger sauce is so explosive, well, it was made in America. After the battle, Danny finds out he accidentally phased through Mr. Lancer. Mr. Lancer suspects Danny is cheating and gives him until the end of the day to return the answers. So another future assassin from the future shows up. This time it's a hybrid of Skulker and Technus. So he was wearing this time-manipulating medallion, and it malfunctioned and sent him back to the future, except Danny and his friends were all sucked in with him. In the future, they encounter Dark Danny. Then Danny finds out that in the future, all his friends and family are dead. They were killed when the nasty burger sauce overheated and the whole place exploded. Exploding hot sauce. That's how they chose to kill all Danny's friends and family. I can't tell if that's ridiculous or disturbing. Dark Danny fuses the time medallion into not Dark Danny, trapping him in the future. Then Dark Danny disguises himself as Kid Danny and goes back to the past with Sam and Tucker. While trapped in the ghost zone, Danny runs into all his future enemies. They're all very pissed off with him. Somehow they made future Kitty look more like a hooker than normal Kitty. But he defeats them using the ghostly whale, a power he doesn't learn until later on in the future. But how exactly did he learn it, though? In the present, Dark Danny reveals himself and his plan, so she sends the boomerang into the ghost zone with instructions on how Danny can escape. After finding it in the future, he escapes through Vlad's ghost portal and encounters future Vlad. Future Vlad explains how after all of Danny's friends and family died in the explosion, he moved in with him. Danny wanted the pain to go away, so Vlad split his human half and ghost half into two. Then Danny's ghost half and Vlad's ghost half fused together, becoming Dark Danny. Then Dark Danny killed human Danny. This is probably the most disturbing moment in all of Nickelodeon history. Dark Danny cheats on the test and Mr. Lancer requests to see Danny's parents at the Nasty Burger since that's where people go when they fail the CAT. Tucker and Sam show up to warn them, but Dark Danny glues them to the nasty boiler as it's about to explode. Just then, or I guess technically 10 years from then, Vlad is able to remove the medallion from Danny, sending him back in time. Then they have the most intense showdown in the entire series. And part of what makes it so intense is the fact that Dark Danny simply existing is proof that he's already won. I can't believe that Big Mac Daddy stole the I am inevitable catchphrase from Dark Danny. Oh wait, I can. But of course, Danny beats Dark Danny with the ghostly whale, afterward trapping him inside the Fenton thermos. Unfortunately, Danny was only a second too late to save his family. Fortunately, Clockwork decided to take pity on Danny and break the rules. He sends Danny back to the moment of the CAT. Danny returns the test answers and Mr. Lancert agrees to let him take the CAT again in 2 weeks. This is what I like about Mr. Lancer. He's not some one-dimensional mean teacher. Don't get me wrong, there are plenty of awful teachers, but I can name a few that learn to have fun with the class and sort of be friends with the students. And those classes tend to have better grades because the students have more respect for their teachers, and vice versa. Then Danny tells Jazz that he knows that she knows about his ghost powers, and they hug and it's a nice moment. But he never does, and honestly, I'm somewhat glad about that. Bringing back Dark Danny could ruin what made his character work. Knowing he was Danny's eventual fate is what made him compelling, but now that future's been averted, it doesn't really have the same impact anymore. And we never saw Danny try to learn the ghostly whale, or train using it or anything. He just kind of learns it, and then beats Dark Danny. Also, Fright Night is back, and now he's Dark Danny's henchman, except he never does anything the whole movie. He just kind of shows up and then disappears. He's not even mentioned again. And a lot of the side characters weren't really as involved in the story when you compare it to Rainstorm, but I guess that's because they wanted to focus more on the future. But I'd say that without a doubt this is one of the best episodes of Danny Phantom ever. And of course, after doing the best episode, it would only make sense to do the worst episode. Now, maybe not the worst in the whole series, but definitely worst of the 4 movie episodes. This episode focuses on the villain Freak Show, who steals a device called the Reality Gauntlet. I was going to make the obvious Infinity War joke, but you know what? I won't, because one, I already did, and two, it just won't be worth it. The reality gauntlet's powers make no sense. There's the gem of form, which can transform stuff, and the gem of fantasy, which can also transform stuff, I guess. It's said to be a ghost artifact, but what about it is ghostly? Was it created by ghosts? Was it found in the ghost zone? What does ghost artifact even mean? I like the concept of Danny having a human enemy, but I feel like Freak Show doesn't deserve his own movie episode. And Freak Show isn't really as strong as Lord Pariah or Dark Danny. Even after getting the reality gauntlet, he just loses it 2 minutes later. Danny's secret identity is exposed, but at the end of the episode, there's one giant undo button that resets everything, and this was already done much better at the end of Ultimate Enemy. Danny also becomes public enemy number one and has to run away from the government, but again, they already did that. Danny defeats Freak Show by tricking him into turning himself into a ghost and then trapping him in the ghost zone. Okay, I have to admit, that's kinda cool. So yeah, I'd say overall it's a pretty meh episode, especially when compared to the other movie episodes. If there's anything good I have to say about Reality Trip is that it confirms my long-time suspicion that Tucker is in fact a furry. Well, and it did use the Infinity Gauntlet for Marvel, so yeah. Now we have one left. Not only is it the last movie episode, but it's also the last episode, period. Phantom Planet. No, not that Phantom Planet. That Phantom Planet. Phantom Planet isn't better than Rainstorm or Ultimate Enemy, but it's not really as bad as Reality Trip either. Ultimate Enemy had time travel, Reality Trip had the Infinity Gauntlet, Phantom Planet has like a space gimmick, which I would have been fine with if it weren't the finale. I'd rather something that was a little more about the relationship of Danny, his parents, and Vlad. And maybe if they were really careful with the way they did, they could have brought back Dark Danny. So the whole space thing comes into play when the gang chases Vlad into space and find out he's trying to steal this ghost kryptonite. Vlad uses the ghost kryptonite to create his own ghost-fighting police force known as the Master's Blasters. And immediately, everyone collectively decides they don't care about Danny Phantom anymore, and they only like the Master's Blasters now. Man, he got replaced faster than Johnny Depp in the third Fantastic Beasts movie. Haha, a relevant reference. Danny gets frustrated, so he blows up the ghost portal and turns himself back into a human. Not really sure how that works, but whatever. Although technically he didn't have to take away his powers to retire, he could have just stopped using them. Then it's revealed that whenever they had that fight in space, they accidentally caused a giant kryptonite meteor to be heading towards Earth. So Vlad reveals to everyone that he's part ghost, and he says that he's gonna go to space and make the meteor intangible, that way it won't hit Earth. I just realized, why do ghosts need spacesuits? They're already dead, and when they turn intangible, do they phase through air? Vlad finds out he can't phase through the meteor because, well, it's made of ghost kryptonite. What'd you expect? Since he revealed his identity, he can never return to Earth, so he decides to just stay in space or something, I don't know. Then Danny convinces all his ghost enemies to turn the Earth intangible, that way the meteor can pass through. Oh, and also he gets his powers back somehow. Then he reveals his identity to the world again, and then him and Sam hook up. And that's it. That was Danny Phantom. This ending doesn't really make me think, wow, what a ride. It really more makes me think, really? That was it? I get what they were going for with the whole Danny loses his powers at the most crucial time kind of thing. But it all just feels so anticlimactic. And I really hate how they concluded Vlad's character. He gets lost in space, that's it. It's a shame how a great show got such a mediocre ending. I guess it's like that old saying, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. The ending wasn't perfect, but it was those little moments in between that mattered. This has been Bradwurst signing off. Hold on. You're trying to tell me Danny Phantom's teacher was Hellboy and Jimmy Neutron's arch nemesis was Pennywise? Huh.